New details tonight on Dan Doyle, who is accused of embezzling more than $1 million from the Institute for International Sport.
His trial, which is expected to take a while, got underway today with opening statements. Doyle has denied all charges. Eyewitness News reporter Jared Planner was in court today. He joins us now live from South Kingstown and the South County Mobile Newsroom.
Mike, Shannon, good evening. That's right. This is expected to take a long time because it all began several years ago with an investigation into an unfinished building and where nearly $600,000 in taxpayer-funded grants had gone. Today, jurors began to sit on what is expected to be a 2 to 4 month long case. The embezzlement trial of Dan Doyle is underway tonight. 18 counts of alleged financial and other crimes.
This defendant used the Institute as his own personal piggy bank.
That institute, the nonprofit Institute for International Sport at URI, it had been Dan Doyle's vision. Prosecutors say he took more than $1 million from it in dire financial times.
While it was in debt, this defendant was paying himself 2 salaries, bonuses, benefits, groceries at his house in West Hartford, paying for his daughter's wedding rehearsal dinner. He got an eye lift.
Prosecutors told the jury they'll prove listed members of the Institute's board of directors had no idea they were on the board. Disclosures filed.
Naming one board member 3 years after his death.
But the defense says the spending was all authorized and there was no intent to commit a crime.
If Mr. Doyle was an embezzler, as the state says, he's probably the worst embezzler in the history of the world. Every penny that the state is talking about is accounted for in the books of the Institute, on the tax returns of the Institute. It's all in plain sight.
Prosecutors also allege that Doyle had improperly used funds to pay for his daughter's college education. Now, the Institute long received the backing, both in terms of public funds and by high-power, high-profile Rhode Islanders, including politicians. One of those high-profile Rhode Islanders, Alan Sean Feinstein, took the stand. He was the first witness today, and you'll hear from him new at 6 o'clock. For now, live with the South County Mobile Newsroom, I'm Jared Planner, Eyewitness News.
Day one of Dan Doyle's trial. Doyle is accused of embezzling more than $1 million from the nonprofit he founded decades ago on URI's Kingston campus. New at 6, we hear from a well-known and influential Rhode Islander who backed Doyle's nonprofit. From the South County Mobile Newsroom, Eyewitness News reporter Jared Planner is live at the McGrath Judicial Complex in South Kingstown with more from today's first witness to testify.
Shannon, a robust witness list in this trial. The state says it expects to call about 50 witnesses over the next 2 to 4 months. The potential witness list in the embezzlement trial of Dan Doyle, full of high-power Rhode Islanders, including philanthropist Alan Sean Feinstein, who donated tens of thousands to Doyle's Institute for International Sport for a building that was ultimately never finished. At the time, Feinstein said he stopped payment because the Institute failed to enforce certain athlete community service requirements.
The funds that we had expended were charitable funds to help people, to encourage young people to do what the Institute had promised they would do, and they were not being met.
Prosecutors say Doyle took over $1 million from the struggling nonprofit.
While it was in debt, this defendant was paying himself 2 salaries, bonuses, benefits.
Every penny that the state is talking about is accounted for in the books of the Institute, on the tax returns of the Institute. It's all in plain sight.
But prosecutors also told the jury that the board of directors of the Institute was a board in name only, and in the lack of that oversight, Doyle used the Institute as, quote, his personal piggy bank. Live outside Washington County Court with the South County Mobile Newsroom, I'm Jared Planner, Eyewitness News.